You're someone who was not born into a mob family. How did you get involved with the mob in the first place?
It's really interesting because the way to get involved, if you're most of the people I was around did come from mob families, and those guys, they understand that life from the cradle. Their uncles are mobsters, their grandfather's a mobster, their dad, their cousins. Like, for example, my friend Ronnie, everybody in his family, every male member of his family practically was either a made wise guy or somebody who was associated with the life. He knew that world from when he was born. The women in that family understand that world from when they're born. They're already programmed that there's a knock at the door, what to do, what to say. There's no learning process. It's something they're born with, which is really interesting. Guys like me, I came in at 17, 16, 17 after I hijacked my first truck. So the sort of like there was a learning curve from like, 17, 18, 19. I'm learning from old timers who were teaching me. Luckily, they took a liking to me early. So I understood things. They explained things to me. If I got something wrong, they had the patience. They saw some type of potential in me and figured, oh, it's worth it. But I think it's a lot different in today's mob. It's a lot different from yesterday's mob when everybody was born into the life. It was something that came from Sicily. And those people, ratting on your family was like the worst thing you could do. And then you got a guy like, let's say, Sammy the Bull Gravano. He goes to watch The Godfather in 1973. There's actually a picture of him coming out of the theater, and he gets it in his head that he wants to be a big mob guy. I mean, for him, when they arrested him, the movie was over. And that's pretty much the end of it. So, oh, I didn't know I had to go to jail. Francis Ford Coppola didn't explain that in the movie, what it was like to kill cockroaches crawling all over me, to deal with people who want to kill me with knives. He shit his pants and went sour. He wasn't raised in the life. That was the difference. Even the Gottis, John Gotti maybe was a first generation wise guy. His father was not in the life, John Gotti Sr. But John Gotti was in the life from when he was a kid. And every one of the Gottis, I used to stay in Pete Gotti's house for 5, 6, maybe 7 years. I was in and out of his house every day. My telephone toll records went back and forth to his house on a regular basis almost every day. The Gottis were a mob family. Every male member of the family understood what it was like to be in the mob or was in the mob, and the women understood it. And it was a completely different lifestyle than people who were introduced into it later, even myself. But I was able to understand it. And I did come from a family, although it wasn't a mob family. I came from a family who my mother's side were criminals. My father's side they all had body shops. They owned auto body shops. My mother's side, they were all bulldozer operators, operating engineers. There's sort of like the highfalutin term for it. But they basically drove bulldozers and backhoes. And on the side, my mother's family were all criminals. So we understood when my uncle went away when I was a kid for hijacking, my grandfather said, your uncle's doing a bit. They asked him to snitch on a friend. He would never do that. And I'm proud of him. We weren't rats in my family. I remember when I was a kid, and we weren't a mob family, but I remember when I was a kid, I came home from school and Miss Adams was my teacher. I'll never forget it. Pete Scadacione threw a pencil at some kid. The lead hit him in the eye. Miss Adams grabs me and says, you got to do detention for a month. She thought it was me. So I went home. I told my father, Dad, it wasn't me. I got to do detention for a month. He goes, who was it? I said, this kid, Pete. He says, well, that's not your business to tell the teacher. You just do the detention for the month then. That's her business to figure it out. I says, okay. I went and I did the detention for a month. My father didn't want me to go snitch on the kid, Pete. My father didn't want me to be the little class rat. So even though my father was a legitimate guy, I understood that you don't snitch on people. So I had sort of like that foundation already built into me to some degree when I entered the life. My uncle was a hijacker. He didn't snitch on his friends. My father told me when I was in school, don't snitch on your friends. So right there is the main thing that you got to know, loyalty to your friends.
Well, you mentioned the first truck hijacking.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about the progression from when you were kind of an ordinary kid to how you reached that point, and about that
Mm-hmm.
truck hijacking.
It's interesting. So when I started out as a criminal, it was just joyrides. A friend of mine used to steal cars. I started stealing cars with him. We joyride. We do donuts. We peel out. The stuff you do as a kid. We'd pick stuff we did as kids. Not all kids do it, but we would pick up girls in the car. We thought who we were. We were 13, 14 years old at the time. Then all of a sudden we get it in our head one day. A friend of mine's, I couldn't go to my uncle's who had a body shop, but a friend of mine's uncle had a auto body shop. And he said, why don't we sell them the parts? And he saw us in a stolen car and he was willing to buy the parts. So we started selling parts. And before you knew it, we were chopping cars. And I got really, right away, I became entrepreneurial. Even as a kid, 15, 16 years old, I got a chop shop going around the clock. I got kids now, I'm paying kids. At first, I was the thief. Now I'm paying kids $100 a car. If I need something, I need a Cadillac, I need a Buick Regal, I need a Pontiac. I give the kid $100. I tell the kids what cars I need, and they're giving me the cars. I'm taking them into a warehouse. Now I got a body shop owner who comes to me and says, I'll rent you a vacant warehouse. You could fill it up, and when you're done, you leave, and we'll do it under a phony lease. Back then, you could do those things. Now you probably can't. So we did it under a phony lease. I left all the guts of the cars that I stripped in the body shop in the warehouse, and we left. We also used to do it in Cunningham Park. We'd take cars to Cunningham Park, do 5 or 6 cars in a spot, and then abandon it. One day we were playing handball, and we're asking the cops what they're doing as they're going in there with flatbeds and they're dragging out our stolen cars, the skeletons of them. And we're just playing handball. We knew it was us, obviously, and they didn't. If they did, they couldn't do anything about it. So from that, all of a sudden, one day I'm in an auto body shop, and I'm delivering parts. And this guy, there's these big, tremendous tool boxes, tool chests. They're like the size of an armoire, these tool chests. They're in body shops, and usually they have drawers and stuff. And I said, wow, look at the size of this tool chest. He says, yeah, they go for about $5-6 grand, those chests, he says, and the tools in it, forget about it. They're expensive. I says, really? And I said, he said, yeah, the truck comes once a week. We go out there, we buy whatever tools we need. They drop off. I said, really, what truck? Snap-on, Matco. I says, you interested in one? He said, sure. He says, where are you going to get it from? I said, I'll take it. I got a couple of friends together. We stuck up the driver, and that was the first hijacking I did. I sold the stuff, and I said, wow, this is fast money. Instead of getting a kid to steal a car for $100, bringing the car here, chopping it, go all night working around the clock to chop it into pieces, then putting the parts into a stolen van so we could deliver it to the guy's shop in the middle of the night. This is 2 minutes. You stick a gun to the guy, you take the load, you sell it, and you made 40, 50,000. At times we would make eventually 100, 150 on certain loads, but it was easy money. So I said, wow, this is an easy way to get loaded. I was making money. And at some point or another, if you're making money, it's almost like a recruiting network. Like the mob has like a human resources division and everyone works in it. They're going to find you if you're making money. They got scouts on the street. If you're a good baseball player and you're pitching 100-mile-an-hour fastball and striking everybody out, the major league scouts will find you. It's the same thing with the mob. If you're taking trucks, you're hijacking trucks every day, you're taking down scores for 50, 60, 100, 150,000, they will find you. And they found me. And basically that's how it happens. Who's this kid taking these loads? And they want you. And then it becomes like, it's like a symbiotic relationship between you and them, because they obviously want you because you're taking the loads, but you want them because you're able then to do bigger and more things. And you have the power of the family eventually behind you. If you get into a beef, you got somebody to sit for you. If you might get tips, I started getting tips from all the different families I was involved with. Might get a guy gives me a ring. He's with the Lucchese family. And he says, Lou, I know you guys got a crew. This is what I got. I got a safe. It's in this business. 5 o'clock Friday at the end of the month. They're going to have 350,000 in cash before they do payroll. You got an hour window to grab it. Wow, you kidding me? How's it look? I go over there, I scout the place, I take a look at it, I bring my crew with me. We figure out how many guys we need to do what. We figure out the path to the place and away from the place. We figure out if we're going to need a crashed car, if we need a stolen car. We figure out who's going to grab who, and we figure out then where we're going to go after. And we put the whole plan together. Next thing you know, we go in there, we take the money, we leave, we give his piece. The guy who gives us the tip gets a piece. I whack it up. I was always straight with my crew. Whatever I had, we split up evenly. I kicked the piece upstairs because you got to do that, and you're done. And because I always did that the right way and always took care of everybody, everybody always wanted to work with me. I had guys in my crew when I was in my 20s. I had guys in my crew who were in their 40s and 50s. And my fence was in his 60s. By the time he went sour, he was about 70. Why did these older people deal with me? I kept my mouth shut, like I was taught from when I was young in my own house. I was loyal, You could count on me. I was not going to be a snitch. And I put a plan together and we got the money and we whacked it up. Everybody wants to be around a money maker, an earner.